Good morning. We are out for our usual morning routine, walking the dog in our local park. And whilst the sun is shining, I wanted to take the opportunity to chat with you about a topic that often crops up in conversation when parents bring their children for an initial speech and language therapy session and we start working with them on developing their early communication skills. There's sometimes a question around autism and whether that might be a consideration when we're thinking about what their child is struggling with their communication and how we can better understand them. Hi! Just have to wait. We'll throw the stick in a minute, okay? When parents approach me for support with their child's early communication skills, there are often a lot of questions going on. Where their child is at in their development, where they might be making more progress, if it's a simple case of a speech delay, or whether there's something more going on. And so often the question of autism is kind of hanging in the air. And I think part of this is because autism is much more widely known about and discussed these days, which is fantastic. I'm really glad that we can talk about neurodiversity and the various different ways that humans interact with the world and to improve our understanding of each other so that we can be more considerate, compassionate humans. If your child is struggling with something, it is natural to have questions and wonder what's going on and want to make sure that you've considered absolutely everything. In my neck of the woods, it can take a really long time to have an autism assessment. So that means that families are waiting quite a long time for a diagnosis. And this question of whether their child might be on the autism spectrum kind of lingers for a while. And I can only imagine how tough this is for families. They can sometimes feel like they're in a little bit of limbo. Parents will often say to me, I just want to know one way or another. I just want to kind of have that question resolved. But regardless of how long we have to wait for a yes or no answer to that question, which involves a lengthy multidisciplinary assessment and some careful thinking, because of course autism is a diagnosis that is with someone for life, so we've got to make sure that we get it right. Despite that potential level of limbo whilst a family are wondering about their child, there's still a lot of really positive figuring out and improving our understanding that we can do as a team before we get a diagnosis for a child, or at least a yes or no answer to that big question. So within speech and language therapy sessions, we're focusing on your unique child, on the individual ways that your child communicates and interacts with their environment. And we're working together as a team to figure out how we can better understand their communication and support their own understanding and their ability to be successful in communicating. And so we're looking at individual difficulties and points of success that we can work to our advantage collectively. And so that means that whether or not we have a diagnosis, whether we have an answer to that question, doesn't really affect what we're doing in speech and language therapy sessions. We're focusing on asking you what your challenges are as a family, what your child gets frustrated by or confused by, and working to improve the everyday ability of your child to be successful and enjoy communicating with you. This is the stuff we do together when we're helping all children figure out communication, so we don't need a label for this. I don't want to underestimate the value of having a diagnosis for your child. It improves our understanding, it improves our long-term planning, and sometimes having that label helps us to have people listen to the significance of the concerns that we have about our child and how much extra support they may need. But if you find yourself in limbo of not yet having the answer to this question, don't despair, because there's still lots we can do today, right now, to help you and your child to improve your communication and understanding of each other. If you're wondering about your child's development, or you find yourself in the back of your head even asking this specific question about autism and whether it's something that might relate to your child, then don't be afraid to voice it out loud. There are people around you who can support you with this and support you on the journey of better understanding your child's development and their communication skills as part of this. And I know it can be a long and potentially daunting journey to answer some of these big questions, and to almost, if it's your first child particularly, be taking a crash course in child development. That's a big thing on top of everything else that you are doing that is so marvellous for your child. And so I think it's really important to speak out and share your concerns and practice some kindness to get the support that you will benefit from in supporting you and your child. If you want to find out more about autism and how individuals on the spectrum navigate the world in all of their beautiful individual variety, then I think it's also really important to consider listening to the voices of those who are on the spectrum. I don't have a diagnosis myself. All I can share is my perspective on understanding the young children that I support within my role as a speech and language therapist, and listening to families and individuals so that we can all work together to better understand each other. If this is a question on your mind, or perhaps on the mind of someone you know, then think about sharing this video, get that conversation going, because the more that we reach out and ask the questions that are on our mind and seek the help that we need, then the better off we're all going to be. Thank you for joining me today. My name's Bryony Rust. I'm a speech and language therapist, and I'm here every week sharing ideas and information to support you in better understanding your child's development and their communication skills. So if this sounds like something that you would appreciate, then please hit subscribe, and I'll see you next week. See you then.